Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm Kayla with Candy Cosplay. You can find me here on YouTube as well as over on Instagram. Thank you for being here today, whether you're new or if you saw my previous video making this chemise behind me. Today I am going to go over my plan for my Princess Daisy cosplay, as well as tell you a little bit about what kickstarted my cosplay journey. At some point, I will probably go over some of my previous cosplays, but today is mostly about what started my cosplay journey and my plan for the Princess Daisy cosplay that I intend to make this month of July. My hope is to finish it by the end of July, and depending on how it goes, maybe enter it into the Rose City Comic Con cosplay contest. The date to enter that cosplay competition is July 31st, so I do have a bit of a deadline. I am not working for the summer. I do work in education, so I am grateful to have the summers off to spend my time working on my sewing projects. So depending on how things go, I may be able to get this finished in time. I do have a lot of other sewing projects, which you might see some sneak peeks of those on my Instagram. Like my most recent post was a weekend free run cosplay that I made with some supplies that I had on hand. It's not the most complex free run, and it's not the most perfect free run, but my goal was just to use what I had in supply to get that done, and I'm happy with it. There's a little bit of a story behind that, but for now I want to get into my cosplay journey and my Princess Daisy cosplay. So I've only been cosplaying for just under 2 years. It'll be 2 years in August. So I first started cosplaying in August of 2022, or rather that's when I first officially wore my cosplay, but I started making my cosplay just before that. I have some friends on the East Coast that I met through gaming, through World of Warcraft, and we were going to meet a couple of them through PAX West in Seattle in 2022, and they are cosplayers. So I decided, well, they're cosplayers, I should make a cosplay. I have always loved costumes. Halloween is my favorite holiday, and I thought, why not? Why not try making a cosplay? I never thought I could be a cosplayer. I didn't think I had the body type for cosplaying. I didn't think that I had the personality type to be a cosplayer. I tend to be rather shy. I tend to, around people I don't know, I tend to have a lot of social anxiety. And I thought that you had to be, I don't know, I thought you had to be someone that wasn't me to be able to cosplay, but they encouraged me to try it out, and so I decided why not. So my husband and I decided on 2 different cosplays. Well, really, he decided on one and I drug him into a second. So the first cosplay we made was Orville and Wilbur from Animal Crossing, the Dodo Pilots, and these cosplays were mostly just purchased clothing items that we pieced together, and the only sewing involved was attaching some patches. They were iron-on patches, so sewing wasn't really required, but I wanted to make it a little bit more secure, and those patches were just purchased off of Etsy. And then I also attached onto the shirts some ribbon and some buttons on the shoulders, and just some accessories were picked up. And at the time, this was masks were still required at conventions, so we also picked up like some matching Dodo airline masks, and these cosplays were super fun to wear. I'll put on the screen here some pictures of those cosplays, and those are still some of my favorite cosplays, and we still include those in our rotations. They're super cute, super fun. And it was really cool. We wore those the first day of the convention that we went, and as we were walking to the convention the second day, we were waiting at a crosswalk, and there was a group of people, and I heard them talking, and they're like, "Did you see those dodo pilots? They were so cool," and blah blah blah. It's like, oh my god, that was me. That was us. Those were our dodo pilots, and we got a lot of people that recognized who we were trying to be, and we had like little ID tags for the pilots that we made, and I really loved those cosplays, and they were really easy to put together. There was nothing complicated about them, but they were a lot of fun, and it was a really great intro to cosplaying. The second cosplay that we put together was Daisy and Luigi. And really, Luigi was just my husband wearing a green shirt and a Luigi hat I picked up off of Amazon. So he was a really just casual thing for him. He wasn't trying to cosplay on that day. He didn't even want to. I just surprised him with the hat the day of so that I wasn't alone. But for me, Princess Daisy was not really anything special. I didn't play any of the Mario games growing up. My brother did play a lot of them and I would watch him, but we played a lot of Mario Party, and when we played Mario Party, Daisy was the character that I would play. And so in that regard, she was special to me. She was the one that I would play because I was very anti-pink growing up. I felt like I couldn't like the color pink because I couldn't be girly. I had 4 brothers growing up, 2 sisters as well, but 4 brothers growing up, and I love girly things now, but for some reason it felt like you couldn't like girly things. And so I didn't want to, like the pink. So Princess Daisy wasn't pink. She was orange, so it was okay. I could go for Princess Daisy. And so that was my first attempt at sewing a cosplay completely on my own. And there was a lot about that cosplay that I wasn't happy with, but I was proud of it. I was very much a beginner sewist. I had made children's clothing. I would make accessories. I had sewn things for my rat cages when I had rats. I would make small accessories and things, but I like circle skirts, but I'd never made anything complicated. So it was my first attempt at really making something for myself with the intent of it being worn in front of people and trying to make it look good. And I don't even remember the pattern that I used. I found a dress pattern on Etsy to try and make the bodice, and I tried to find like a puff sleeve dress pattern, but I didn't like the skirt that it came with. I did make a mock-up. I made a mock-up of the pattern, but I didn't know how to make things fit me. So like I could get it on, but it was baggy, but I was scared to size down in case it didn't fit because the waist fit, but the rest of it was too large. But I didn't understand fitting clothes to myself, so I didn't want to try and adjust anything in case nothing else would fit. So instead of changing the bodice, I decided I didn't like the gathered skirt because it was bulky and it didn't have the flow that I wanted. So I kept the bodice and I changed out the skirt. I made a circle skirt. And so I made a double layered circle skirt for the bottom, and I figured out how to make the hip floof part. I've heard different ways to call that, but I just call them the hip poofs. Using just circles that were folded in half and gathered down. And there was so much that I was unhappy with this. The bodice was oversized. It was single layered. It was baggy. The sleeve cuffs were really tight on my arms, so I couldn't comfortably move. It was very uncomfortable. And the puff sleeves themselves, they were sagging, and I think this was because the arm cuffs were too tight. I couldn't get it pulled up high enough, and I didn't have a serger at the time, and I didn't understand finishing my sleeve or seams, and so the fabric that I was using was a polycotton, just a basic polycotton blend from Joann's, which I love. I use polycotton blends all the time. I have a very limited budget when it comes to my fabrics, so I tend to use very inexpensive fabrics. And so it's just raw edges on the inside, and I didn't understand what pinking shears were, and I didn't understand finishing seams, so it's just a lot of raw edges on the inside of the skirt. So there's a lot of fraying seams on the inside, and it's just falling apart. So as I was walking around con, I had a lot of like just strings from the raw edges that were like pulling loose and just trailing behind my skirt. But I was happy with it in that it was something that I made. I also had like pen marks on the hip floofs hip poofs that were that had shown through, that you could see on the folded edge where I had marked where I wanted the folds to be, and because I didn't own a fabric marker or fabric pen at the time, so I was just using a regular pen. So there was a lot of things that I would change, but I was happy with it because I had made it and I was proud of it. And then last Christmas, I decided to make a change to that cosplay. I wanted to wear it last Halloween, and so I took the bodice off of the skirt and I kept the skirts. I turned the skirts into a drawstring waistband, and then I ended up taking it to Joann's and finding a matching fabric to remake the bodice. And I will share on the screen here a picture of it. I ended up modifying Simplicity 8411 to make a new bodice for it. It was a fully boned bodice, and I made elasticated puff sleeves that I could wear on or off the shoulders so that I could redo the bodice to wear with it. And there are some things that I would definitely change with this. I wasn't fully happy with how this fit me, but I knew a little bit more about fitting garments to my body at this point. But I definitely needed some flat steel boning along the very front panel so that it didn't fold. It kept trying to like fold up in the front where that rounded part at the bottom of the bodice went over the skirts, because every time I sat down it would just fold up, and by the end of the day the plastic boning had like permanently bent forwards. And then along the lacing panels at the back, I really needed the steel boning as opposed to the plastic boning I was using to give it that extra structure while it was lacing. But despite the flaws in both versions, I really, really love my Daisy, the casual Daisy, and I may try to do some repairs to the skirt. I have a serger now. I have a Janome serger, and I really love it for seams where I'm not going to be doing like flat felled seams or French seams or something that's going to have the raw edges encased in some way. And I may try and go through and serge some of those seams and make some repairs. I don't know now. I have lost some weight since I made the bodice. I haven't tried the new bodice. I haven't tried it on recently, but I have a feeling it's not going to fit me anymore. So I may make another bodice down the road to go with my casual skirt. But also my niece really enjoys wearing that casual skirt. She got to wear it to a convention with just a orange t-shirt or a yellow t-shirt to be Princess Daisy for a day, and she really enjoyed it. So I may end up in the end gifting it to her. But I really loved that cosplay, and I learned a lot while making it. So I may just keep it in my rotation. We'll see what I end up doing. But because of that experience and because I enjoyed it so much, I want to redo it. But I want to redo it differently. I've always really loved big, fluffy princess gowns. Even when I didn't want to be the girly things, I always had a secret love of the big princess ball gowns and all the lace and the floof and the frou-frous. And I got a taste of that while I made my Sylveon cosplay. And you can see some pictures of that on my Instagram. I need to do a photo shoot with that because when I went to PAX East this year in March, I totally forgot to just take some good photos of that cosplay. So I have some very limited photos of it, and I have no close-up photos of it. I have a dress form now, which I didn't have previously, so I may put it on my dress form and get some good close-up photos of it now. But I really got to just cover that in lace and pearls and all the pretty things, and it gave me a taste of making something just really just opulent, and I want to do more of that, and I really want a big ball gown. So I decided this summer to redo my Daisy, and part of that inspiration was because this summer I have a goal of beginning to teach all of my nibblings how to sew, and I have a lot. I have 10 nieces and nephews, and all of them that are older want to learn how to sew. So one of my nieces had the request to make a Rosalina cosplay. So figured, why not? Let's do Rosalina. And then I was like, well, why not redo my Daisy cosplay and we can cosplay together? And then her mother was like, well, I want to cosplay too. So why not do Princess Peach? So this is kind of a group cosplay, and there may be some peeks into their cosplays as we go, but I'm not sure if their cosplays will get started this month or if theirs will be more of later, because the convention we plan to wear them to is not until September. So because of my personal time constraints for finishing my cosplay, we may not start their cosplay until August. But they will be cosplaying with me, so we will be making Rosalina, Princess Peach, and Princess Daisy together. But we're not, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a moment. So the inspiration for my Daisy is not going to be exactly the same as my casual Daisy. So the inspiration I'm pulling from this is going to be from the Princess Peach and Princess Daisy Smash Ultimate dresses, which I will share a picture on the screen if I can. I don't want to get a copyright strike for sharing something I don't own. You can always look them up too if I'm not allowed to share it. But I really like how over the top the dresses are. I like all the layers. I like all the lace. I really like how over the top the dresses look. But I don't want a one-on-one copy of the design. I've seen a lot of really beautiful makes of these dresses, but I want to make it my own version of this. And part of that too is also I'm not the biggest fan of the really high neckline. I'm not against modesty by any means. I dress fairly modestly myself every day, but also I know in a convention in September, even though I'm in Oregon, September can be quite warm. I'm going to get unbearably hot, especially if I'm that covered, even with the hoops keeping things off of my legs. I do have a medical condition that can make me very, very, very heat intolerant, and I know I'm going to be uncomfortable if I am fully covered all the way up to my neck. So I am actually planning on modifying it. So I will share a picture of my design here. I've made a sketch of what my plan is. So I plan on making an off-the-shoulder design using, I guess I'll get into that when I get to the bodice, but I have a plan for that. So I will have a lot of layers. It will probably be warm. I will do my best to stay cool. I have other cosplays that have been quite warm. I have managed, but I want to do my very, very best to make it a big ball gown, to not overheat, but to stay true to my design and also to the inspiration. So I want to go over the layers that I know for sure this is going to have. So the first layer is going to be the chemise. I've already finished the chemise and I already have a video up about making the chemise. The next layer that I plan to do is a corset. This is two-part One, I tend to be a bit shaped like a rectangle. I want to use the corset to give me a little bit more shape and the type of silhouette that I want, but I don't plan on doing any sort of tight lacing because I want to be comfortable. But also, I want to have the support for all the layers that this cosplay is going to have. This cosplay is going to have multiple skirt layers, petticoat layers, and the crinoline. So I want to be able to have the support around my waist and hips to hold up that weight, and the corset is going to help distribute the weight of all of those. I have nothing against corsets. I have watched a lot of videos about corsets, the history of corsets, and I think they get vilified far too much. And there's always going to be extremes in fashion, and I think it is a tool like anything else, and if used properly, it's fine. I really like making corsets, and when I go over my corset video, I plan on sharing the corsets that I have made and the struggles that I have had while learning to make them and where I have gotten to before making the one that I plan to make. And the corset I plan to use is an Aranea black pattern. I got lucky enough to find a collection of them that somebody had saved. I plan on making the Tesa corset. I like the silhouette. It's based off of an 1880s pattern. I've made several of her corsets now to varying degrees of success, and I've been lucky enough that her patterns fit me quite well without any modifications, and I really, really like the ones that I have made. So that will be the next video that I make after this, will be the corset. After that, the next layer is the hoop skirt. I actually have purchased a hoop skirt. I'm not happy with the hoop skirt that I have purchased. It ended up being very A-line, unlike the photos, but it is to the ground. So what my plan is to use that A-line hoop skirt, and then I have a very cupcake shaped hoop skirt that I made for my Sylveon cosplay that I plan to layer over the top of that, and it's a shorter hoop skirt. I used a pattern and tutorial from Sarah Spaceman to make that, and there is a significant jog between the two when they are layered over each other, so that is where the next layer would come in handy, which is a petticoat. I plan on following a tutorial from Kiralee Cosplay, which is a how to make a simple long petticoat tutorial to hopefully smooth that transition, as well as the bones of the hoops of the petticoat. And there's enough layers in the skirts that I think between the petticoat and the layers of the skirt that jog and the hoops shouldn't be visible, and it should all be fine. But if there is still a significant jog, I plan on making a ruffled petticoat layer to go in there to help break up that jog and the hoops. If it's still a problem, then I plan on modifying the pattern from Sarah Spaceman to make a floor-length version of that petticoat so that I can get the cupcake shape that I want for this cosplay without having the jog. But at this time, I don't have enough of the steel hoop or the steel bone that I would need for that. So I would need to order more. So my hope is that I can get away with what I already have, because at this point I'm just hoping I have enough of the steel flat bone for my corset, which I may not even have enough for that. So there's another layer that I may or may not end up needing. It depends on the weight of the skirts, but I have a feeling I will need it, and that is a bum pad. I already have a bum pad made. I made it for my Rosie cosplay for Has Been Hotel, and that is going to go under the hoop skirts just for extra support if I end up needing it, just to keep the skirts sitting where they need to be. And that is something that I can share if I end up needing to use it. And I I have made a digital pattern for the bum pad that I made because I did not end up using a pattern for that. At least I don't believe that I did. I think I self-drafted my bum pad, but I may be mistaken. It may be my second bum pad that I self-drafted. In the first bum pad, I may have used somebody's pattern. I'll have to confirm that. If I used, I can't remember. It's been a while since I made the bum pad. I will have to confirm whether or not I used a pattern or not for that. If I did use a pattern, I will link it below. And if I self-drafted a pattern, I will share it below because I cannot recall. It's been a while. After that, I plan on using multiple layers of skirts to create the split skirts. I have a very limited amount of the crepeback satin because I did not plan ahead for this cosplay before I ordered the fabric. I impulsively bought fabric and then planned out the cosplay. So I intend on using a mixture of some thrifted bed sheets and the crepeback satin to create my skirts. So the skirts themselves, I plan on making just rectangle panels that have been gathered down or pleated down to my waist measurement to create the skirts. But so there will be a layer of bed sheet and then a layer of the satin, and then there will be a layer of whatever ruffle or trim will be at the bottom, whether it's the yellow and then the orange or however it needs to go. And I'll go through that in much more detail in my skirts video. But it's a little complicated, but I've already gone through and done all the math, and I have just enough of my fabrics to make this cosplay work. I could order more if I needed to, but I wasn't sure if I needed to order more if I'd be able to get it done in time for my self-imposed deadline. But I think it's going to end up working. The next layer is the bodice. So the bodice that I plan on using is actually a McCalls pattern. It's McCalls M7885, and I plan on taking that bodice pattern and embellishing the bodice to make it look similar to the Daisy's dress. So I plan on taking that, embellishing it, making it similar to the dress, making it look close enough to the inspiration photo, but it's not going to be high on the neck or anything. It's all going to be off the shoulder. Beyond that, the only other things that I'm going to do are going to really depend on time frame. So there's going to be any accessories, whether that's jewelry. The wig I already have. It's an inexpensive wig, but I plan to restyle it. I have some gloves that I have crocheted, so I will either reuse those gloves or I will make new gloves. I plan on making some jewelry, and I may or may not make a matching parasol depending on if I have time. So as far as this cosplay goes, I've already started the first steps, which is with the chemise. Beyond that, I am going to start with the corset and then the petticoat, and then I plan on tackling the skirts. So after that has all been finished, I am going to tackle the bodice. I didn't want to tackle the bodice or the skirts until after I had completed the corset, just so that I ensured that I had the correct body measurements, since once you have a corset on, your body measurements are going to change. So once I have the corset video out, I should be able to get those next steps started. So the only things that I am a little concerned about time frame wise is some projects that I have to make sure I get done first, because timeline wise, their event is coming up sooner. So on the 20th of July, I am going to a Siren Ball, which is a mermaid-themed masquerade ball in Portland, and I have 2 dresses that need to be fully completed before then for myself and my sister-in-law. Originally, my little sister was going with us as well, and I was going to be making her dress and jewelry, but it appears she is not going to be getting the time off for that, so I will not need to be concerned about making her dress in time for that event, which is unfortunate that she can't come with us, but fortunate that I don't need to be concerned about the timeline. But I have the majority of the pieces completed for those projects. It's mostly a bustle that I need to create and then a lot of beading that needs to be finished. So you can keep an eye out on my Instagram for some pictures of those dresses and accessories for that. And hopefully I will have some updates here soon for the Princess Daisy cosplay. But I hope that you are as excited about this project as I am, and I will see you soon. Thank you for joining me on this journey.